Welcome, everyone, and thank you for listening to Sports Doc Talk. Check us out at sportsdoctalk.com. All sports, all orthopedics, all the time, except for today. We've got two great guests. I'm Will Sanchez, along with our orthopedic surgeon and sports medicine specialist, Dr. Grant Garcia. Our guest today, you have to listen to their podcast. It's absolutely amazing with incredible guests. The name of the podcast is called I'm a Pod Star, Not a Doctor. Check them out on your favorite listening platforms. Check them out on YouTube's. They've got their shows. They've got snippets of great moments. Let's bring them in. Dr. Danny Acevedo, a.k.a. Cuff Daddy. I know it's like a rap star here. And Dr. Shariff, Bishai, a.k.a. the American Gangster. Oh, fellas, thank you so much for taking time. I'm a huge fan of the show. I've been watching it. I love the snippets. I think it's genius, right? The little 2-minute, 3-minute snippets just gives you that nice little taste and flavor if you're not listening to the whole show, and really gives an example of the creativity and the diversity of your show, from, golf and surgeons and you name it. And I've seen interviews with you guys. Anyway, I'm yip-yapping along the way. Thank you very much for being here. Dr. Garcia, how excited are you to have these two gentlemen on the show?
I'm super excited. This is going to be a good mix. You have guys that are incredibly well known on the internet and throughout the world for their techniques. They're cutting edge. They're teaching everything, but they're also super funny, chill, and their podcast is awesome. It's a completely different vibe than, honestly, what our podcast is like or some of the other ones out there. And, you may hear from them. The goal is for them, if you learn something by accident, that's awesome. But otherwise, just here to have fun. I'm really excited.
I'll start real quick. Every time we have doctors on the show, I have to, it's respectful, right? And you have to say, Dr. Bishai, Dr. Acevedo. But with these two, it doesn't feel that way. Dr. Bishai, this sounds funny saying it. Thank you so much for being here. How has the show been doing this podcast? How's this experience been for you?
Man, I love it. It's I'm hanging out with my boy, and so when Danny and I are on the mic, it's like I'm just picked up the phone to hang out. And our DJ producer Bobby, he's the creativity. He's the one who comes up with all that stuff you love. And so we got to throw him a shout out. And so that's Bobby Digital. And we just have a good time. And so for me, if anyone's listening, great. If no one's listening, I'm still having a good time.
Dr. Acevedo, Danny, the Cuff Daddy, once again, thank you so much for being on the show. Tell me about the idea of this podcast and how this got started. Who was the creative genius putting this together? Obviously, we got a shout out from Bobby, but as far as the concept of putting this show together, explain that a little to me.
Well, the name, I came up with the name.
By accident, it just fell out of your mouth, so don't.
It fell out of my mouth. No, so I met Shariff at the ASCS meetings, and I see him at meetings. We're both like lecturing and teaching, and we kind of clicked. We got a similar vibe, and I was trying to find somebody to have a podcast with, and I didn't really want to do I wanted to do a fun podcast. I mean, obviously, there's a place for every podcast. You guys have a place where you do sports. It's very cool. I don't want to copy anybody. I just wanted a place where I could showcase like my normal self and just how normal and cool like some of my doctor friends are and some of my other friends are. And then so Shariff hit me up and then he's like, hey, would you be interested in having a podcast? And I was like, oh yeah, I've actually been thinking about a podcast. I'm like, who could I do it with? And then he texted me back and he's like, me. And I was like, oh, okay. So that's kind of how it came up.
Yeah. And that's where it goes back even further. So a couple of years ago, Bobby reached out to me and he was like, hey, we have a great idea. Why don't we have you on? And we'll make you the host and we'll interview all these other kinds of doctors. And I'm like, orthopedist? He's like, no, like family practice and urology. I'm like, that sounds terrible. And so it kind of died. And then when Danny and I started, getting to know each other, and I was thinking to Bobby, I was like, you know what? I think I got a guy. So I called Danny, and then Danny's like, well, let's have a meeting and we can figure out if this will work. And he's like essentially going to interview us to see if we were cool enough to hang out with them. But then I obviously we passed.
Gangster, dude. He's Cuff Daddy. It takes a lot.
Yeah. It's all about the vibe. You guys have good chemistry. I know me and Sharif have good chemistry, so that's huge, right? Like I was thinking of some other people, but it actually worked out great, and I'm having a good time. We're having fun on our podcast, and we're just kind of doing the thing.
The hardest part about our podcast is LA internet, period.
That's it.
I can see Danny's shut down a few times with his LA internet.
Dude, it's the LA internet. Like the LA internet sucks. Like at 5:00, everybody's home, and there's like probably like 1 million people like where I live, like alone. Like
I thought people went outside and exercised and ate avocados and shit.
No, dude,
Wire,
they're playing
like
Fortnite and whatever they're doing at night.
when we first met, he goes, "You're a Gemini," and I say, "Okay." I didn't realize that you could figure that out, but that's cool. And he was absolutely right. And so the Gemini, it means there's the yin and the yang kind of thing. And so it kind of makes sense why I'm American Pharoah and Dr. Bishai. So it kind of all fits.
That's awesome.
It's like residency, Grant. Didn't you have a nickname in residency? I'm sure you did.
I think I probably had a few of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all over the place. It depends. I'm usually pretty hyper. So I get like I'm always like full speed everywhere.
Yeah, it's funny because like when I was thinking I wanted to do a podcast a while back, I saw that you guys had a podcast. I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I liked you guys talked about sports and ortho, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. So I like that. And then Scott Sigmund has his podcast, and at the time I was like, dude, I really want to have a podcast, but I don't follow sports like that. Like I'm more of I go to meetings and then I'm crazy on the side. So like, where do I fit in? And then it's funny when me and Sharif kind of met at a meeting, we kind of started talking and we both were like looking for a podcast partner. And then he kind of hit me up. He's like, hey, do you want to do a podcast? I was like, oh yeah. I was like, I've been totally thinking about one. I was like, who can I do one with? And he's like, me.
Anybody but you. Who can we do it with?
No, it's like, no, you really? You? No, but Bobby, who is our producer and DJ, he was great because he reached out to me a while back and he's like, hey, I want to do a podcast with you and you could be the host and each week we'll bring on a different type of doc and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, hey, that sounds terrible. I mean, I have no interest to do anything but orthopedics and preferably just sports. And then so it kind of died. And then when Danny and I started talking, he's like, why don't we meet? And if this sounds like it may work, then we can move forward. So he's like, essentially he's interviewing us. It's like, cause he's got options.
No, dude, it's not even that. It's like your podcast is awesome. You guys do sports. Like I'm not into sports like that, right? And we're already into orthopedics. You're into orthopedics. I see some of your videos, Grant. They're awesome. Sharif has videos. We all teach. We're all a part of this. But I wanted an outlet where I was like, look, a lot of people that meet me are like, you're a doctor. Like you're really cool. Like I really like your vibe. You're different. You're down to earth. And then I just wanted to be like, you know what? There's a lot of people that I hang out with that are actually like me. And I wanted just a platform just to kind of showcase that. I mentor students, I mentor my own children to try to get people to be doctors, to be like us. And I think the best way to kind of get people to know who we really are, like, is just to kind of show it, right? And obviously not to be too crazy, but that's kind of where the idea came from, is I just wanted to kind of show like other stuff that I'm into, like the friends that we talk to, stuff we talk about.
No, I love that. I love that idea. I mean, it's just with like I think that's what in my office, like the same sort of thing. It's like they're so used to someone either like rigid, quick, just want to go and to get out of the office, or they're not used to like the personality type. So if you have a little personality, it can really connect with the patients, especially, you guys are super fun. And so like, if you already have all the skills, right? And so then now you're just the fun person. So you get the doctor, it just eases their stuff. Cause I mean, I see what you guys are doing. Like some of these aren't straightforward cases. I'm sure your patients aren't coming in just giggling before they meet you. So, you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, so it's like you're decompressing difficult situations with all the stuff you do. And honestly, the stuff that you guys are doing is the stuff that I've always looked forward to doing at some point, and just breaking out and showing your true personality. Because most of us have personalities that people want to hang out with. We have 99% of my friends are not doctors. So, that doctor persona that you have to have in the office sometimes is not, the way you always are. And you guys are kind of letting loose and showing people the other side, which is what people think is fun and entertaining. You're like, hey, listen, this person could be You can have a beer. I always tell people, like, if you feel like you can have a beer with your surgeon or like chill with your surgeon, you think they're a good person, and on top of the fact they're going to do a good job, that's the best type of personality to deal with, because it's just it's a different level of care, I think, when they're, because that persona you guys are showing, it's just something that's like a connection.
Yeah, I think Danny and I vibed the second we met, and I think it's important, like you said, I think the first things first, we're docs, and we have to be good to our patients, offer a product that is going to make them better. But at the same time, you got to be human. And I think you definitely see our human side. I think there's this need from people to think that doctors have to be a certain way. They have to be that rigid person. And then at the same time, while they want us to be that way, then they say, well, that doctor doesn't have a good bedside manner. It's like, well, you can't have it both ways. So I think you got to straddle that line a little bit and kind of come in and out. I don't think you necessarily need to be friends with every one of your patients, but you need to have that respect for them as they'll have for you. And I think what comes of that is a nice doctor-patient relationship. But at least for our pod, whoever's listening, because now I have patients coming in saying, oh, I listened to your show. And I'm like, oh, shit, what did I say? So you got to be a little bit careful.
You just mentioned you went to Harvard to hang out with your buddy. You guys are all over the internet on your non-podcast stuff and all the really prestigious things that you guys do. How I've talked about like what I do to try to stay cutting edge for my patients in Washington and Seattle area. What do you guys do? Like, what is it that you can do that allows you to keep doing those things? I mean, you're teaching about arthroscopic DTAs, arthroscopic Latarjets, and for some of the patients, they'll look those things up. They've talked about those before. So like, how do you guys do it? What's the trick? What's the flavor? What's the magic?
For me, it was my patient population, and I kept on seeing these things that I just didn't have an answer for. I knew there was an answer out there. And so I said, well, how do I task myself and challenge myself? And I said, I'm going to just go learn. So I went to Europe, and I went to La Fosse. I went to Ravenscroft in Manchester, England. And then I went to Paul Favorito in Cincinnati and George Athwell in Hamilton, Ontario, and, bounced around, did a couple other labs. And it took me from the day that I said I wanted to learn arthroscopic Latarjet to my first case was almost 2 years. And I don't think it takes that long now, because there's a lot more opportunities than there were back in 2013 to 15 when I did this. So I think it was the shift in the way I thought about things. And I thought why are we seeing so many failures with bank carts? So I need to figure that out. And then I did the same thing with like lower trapezius transfers. What are we going to do? SCR doesn't work. And we don't know what the balloon's going to be, and not everybody at a young age needs a reverse. So I have to find something. And that's when that whole thing started. And Bassem taught me that as well. So for me, it was the patient population I was seeing, giving them an answer, and making sure that I could do it with my hands. And if I couldn't, then I needed to get them to somebody who could.
Yeah, that's kind of what I do. Like, I always joke with my colleagues. I always tell them, I'm like, you got to stay ready to be ready. And they look at me like I'm crazy, but that's kind of how I am, right? Like, if I see new techniques come out, I go to meetings, people talk about these techniques. I try to learn them. I'll set up a lab, or I'll either do it. Sometimes I don't need to do a lab, and I'll just like do it on the patient, just kind of tell them, oh, it's the first time I'm doing it, but it's not a big deal. Cause we're all technically gifted after like a certain point. And I think after like 6-7 years of getting my reps in, and I finished my fellowship, and I kind of knew what I could do and what I couldn't do. I tried to do the stuff that I couldn't do, and I challenged myself. Arthroscopic Latarjet was always something I wanted to do. And once I got my scope skills up, I learned how to do it. I talked to La Fosse, I talked to Boileau, and then I figured it out. And then as far as the videos go, like I just like teaching. I like videos and the social media type thing. So I would make Vumedi videos if I did a good case and I thought that I had something to offer somebody else trying to learn how to do something. Like I did a SCR video early on. I did an arthroscopic Latarjet video early on in a trap transfer, because I know a lot of people want to learn how to do it. And I think for me, I'm like, people know me. I'm like, here, this is what I did. Check this video out. And then it kind of helps people. And it's always nice because people will text me. It's like, hey, I watched your video before I did the surgery. It really helped. And for me, that helps me want to continue to teach other people just how to help patients, man. Like we're all in the game. You know, I watch stuff that you do and like how you teach patients and stuff that we're all learning from each other, which is great. So for me, I think I just follow other like-minded people, and then I just try to push myself to continue to be better.
And if they can see that I can do it, then they're usually like, oh, I can do it. If Bishai can do it, I can do it.
No, I love it. I mean, this is, Will's heard me talk about this before, but it's good that's why it's good to have you guys on here for him to see sort of, this is not just one person doing something, trying to get better or whatever. It's all different ways to do things. And this is what, listen, you're traveling outside the country to France. You're going to Canada to learn these new techniques. It's good for the patients to hear this stuff because they don't always understand that some of these more complex things sometimes take that stuff. Not all the time. What Daniel said is true too. I mean, I hate to say it. Sometimes you watch a YouTube video, if you know the steps, if you got everything else, I just tell them it's just combination. You're just changing the order, right? It's like for the lower trap transfer. For me, it was just the dissection. So I did that in the lab a couple times just to kind of get that feel. And then I did SCRs before, so that wasn't the hard part. In terms of the conversion rate. So it's interesting to see what you guys are saying. And what you mentioned about the videos is exactly what early on I was like, I'm putting out these videos. I'm like, I don't know if anybody cares. I think it's cool. I like doing them. Actually, it helps me. It helps me a lot, actually, though. I like having the video. I'm like, I haven't done this surgery in like a year. I'm like, how do I do it? I'm like, oh, it's on my video. So it's helpful.
I think videos are so important. And I'm the chair of the Orthopedic Video Theater for the Academy right now. And so for us, we want as many videos as we can get because we will review those, peer review those, and make sure that they're to the standard of the Academy, and then make sure that when they get out there, everybody can use them. And it's not something that, oh, you got to pay for this or you can only do this if you're no, we want people to see these because these are experts that are putting it out there. They're reviewed by a context expert. And then at that point, anybody can watch them. So it's great for residents and fellows and even people in practice. So I think video is the new way. And then once AI starts kicking in and we can layer those with the papers that we discuss within our videos, I think it's going to be amazing.
Have you ever gotten any videos where you go, yeah, man, we can't put that out there. That is just some. Is there any video that's ever stood out that you're like, yeah, nope, that's not going to work, and makes you question about that, doctor? We don't have to say names. We don't have to say names.
No. Oh gosh, Will, you did do it. You did it, didn't you?
Let's just say it's maybe a style difference, right? Like it's just like some people dress better than others, but they're still wearing clothes.
That's fair. Ooh, that's nice. That's nice.
I like that.
That was very diplomatic right there.
Too. That's
you know what I want to do? The words. And I don't even care if I give this idea to all these listeners that you have. I want to do this thing called the cuff cloud. And then basically it would be like this.
Stop it. It's coming out. Stop it.
Fine, okay, I won't say it.
Now we just tease the listeners. They'll see
nice. I like it.
I know. They're going to be all typing in cuff cloud now.
Yeah.
End of Q1, it'll be out.
Can you get some scrubs made with like really big cuffs and then walk into the operating room? Can you get something like that? So they, cuff daddy's walking in with these big cuffs.
Dude, no, I need to get a chain though with like a big C on it. That would be super cool. But there's a doctor in Beverly Hills. I don't want to say his name, but he has these special scrubs where they're cut off and like he's always like showing his cut off scrubs. And I was going to DM him because I wanted to see where he got those.
He got them at the store, and then he got scissors. That's where he got them.
Dude, they're just scissors.
Genius.
Hey, I was going to ask you, Grant. I think it's pretty cool. Like, I like what you do. I don't think I could do that. I like how you were doing on your podcast, and you talk about like youth sports, and so do you use your podcast to kind of like help the community with these topics and stuff? And like, how are you promoting it in your community?
So I just do like if I get something crazy, like our patients are confused about something, I'll do a podcast for it or to promote the actual like thing, like ACL repair or other things, and then I'll use it and publicize it on all the social media things I can. But it's actually funny. I get people coming in asking for the surgeries on the podcast. I have very frequently patients come in. And some like device companies I work with, like for like our rehab stuff, people come in asking for that stuff after they listen to the podcast. So it's really interesting how you have to be careful, obviously, because whatever you're putting out there, I realized really quickly, like as long as you make sure it's real information, you could see you're talking about you guys talking about like vetting the videos. We're known surgeons now. So you start putting something out that's not accurate, that's a big problem as well. So it's good. Like I found out really quickly that if you promote the right things and the things that are fair and reasonable, people want to listen to it. So I kind of swerve around, and I'll hit up to Will. I'll be like, Will, what do you think about this topic? Because obviously he knows more of the layman term stuff. And he's like, that's super cool. Let's talk about it. And I try to promote mostly cutting edge stuff, because I think for me, I'm super excited about like the next cool thing, the next cool thing, the next cool thing. And so for me, I'm like, I want to get that up to date. I'm like, telling people about how to fix a rotator cuff to me is boring. I want to talk about like how I'm going to make it better. I'm going to do some crazy patch or do some other type of thing that there's out there. So that's kind of the way I think about it. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah. And just to piggyback on that, I've worked with a lot of coaches between high school, middle school, youth coaches. My background is a producer at Madison Square Garden. I used to work with the high school, Rangers, Knicks. So when we still have texts and conversations, and we want to make sure that we communicate these things and try to get some information like this is what we're seeing on the field. This is what's happening. So then when Garcia and I talk, that's where I go, yeah, that sounds really good. And that's something that's important. Talking about, the Q collar, knowing how concussions is playing a big part of just the conversation right now, right? I just saw that California is now trying to make a movement here to ban football tackling in football. I don't know when it's 2028, whatever that is. I don't have the information in front of me. So it's a big topic. So when we could talk about these things and address them and speak with great guests like yourselves, it's just, I think people resonate to the conversations. So that's how we kind of come up with some of these topics here.
Well, Will, I'm going to jump on that. You know how you get rid of concussions in football?
Tell me.
Take off the helmet.
You're not the first person to say that. Or I've also heard take the face mask off.
Yeah, because if you look back at the statistics, it's as technology gets better, the concussion rate gets higher. There's certain things. I mean, yes, we've changed rules. You can't target. You can't lead with the crown of the helmet. But it's a weapon. Just like when you put a kid in a cast, the first thing I tell them is like, this is not a weapon. You can't beat the crap out of your little brother and sister.
That's why you can't get a cast in jail.
Right. Yeah, you go to college.
Really? We learned some. See, we're going to learn something on this today.
Well, we used to have a jail at the USC county. We go to jail and like they wouldn't like us to put casts on because the inmates would use them as weapons.
So there you go.
It totally makes sense too. So what do you do? Just soft cast, ace band?
Or we like cast them and then they like keep them there, or they put them in isolation or something. I don't remember. I hated going up there. It was scary.
I did that. I saw that. I went to my USC interview. I saw the prison there. I was like, this is interesting.
That was scary.
This is interesting.
That's where that's where you learned all your cutting edge techniques, I thought.
Yeah, dude, it is. I mean, it was a great place to train. I don't want to say we practiced on these people, but yeah, we practiced on these people. But everyone's practicing. I don't know. You can't sugarcoat it. I mean, what are you going to do? Just
Isn't that what we're in? We're in practice. I was described that to people. They're like, listen, you did. I try to tell even the new fellows, like people call me, they're like, I saw your video. Tell me about this. And I'm like, dude, if you're doing the same thing you learned in fellowship in your first few years, you're not doing it right. I was like, I remember I did like 20 surgeries I never learned in fellowship. And I thought like Cole and everybody knew everything and they're awesome. But like, my third case, I did a glenoid fracture and I'd never seen one done arthroscopically. And I'm like, oh my God, how do I do this? And they're like, you got to fix
Peter Miller's video. That's what I did. And then I did it.
That's what I did actually, but it actually worked. So I was like, this is pretty cool.
Yeah. So for everyone
we have
listening,
a lot in common.
Yeah, everyone listening, if you're a doctor, you got to keep putting these videos out because we're all watching. We're all looking.
For sure.
It's weird. It's so weird to hear. It's so great to hear it. Like it took a little while before we started hearing it, but people were like, I was down like giving a talk for something else. And people were like some random, private practice docs, like I watched your video on that. That's really cool. And I'm like, what? That's it makes you feel good to be helping and teaching. Obviously, like I think the good thing is like the open forum. Like I like ViewMedi a lot because it's super chill. Like every once in a while you get a thumbs up. Someone thinks it was okay. You get a weird comment every once in a while that you don't respond to. But outside of that,
Trolls.
My biggest concern with the videos was like someone was gonna be like, that's not right at all.
They're trolling.
They're trolling, the trollers.
But how many times have you watched a video and you're like, that's not right? No, that's or at least the narration that you say the wrong thing. So I went to Memphis to teach a course 2 weeks ago, and one of the guys was a buddy of mine that I was teaching, and he said, hey, I watched your arthroscopic lateral video, and yeah, it's 53 minutes. You didn't edit it. Thanks for doing that, because it made it really nice to see like every step and where you struggled. I'm like, well, that was the point. And he goes, but you called it the coracoacromial ligament, and you were talking about the coracoclavicular ligaments. I'm like, bro, okay. You know what I mean.
But dude, the guy, you should give the guy, look, I would never watch a 53-minute video. That you should give him he can say whatever he wants about your video. He sat there for 53 minutes and watched it.
That's fair.
That's
fair.
impressive.
I'm going to shoot him a text right now.
Do you think he's watching the video as he's in surgery and just hitting pause on the button and then kind of doing the procedure? Then,
dude, there you go.
Is that why? He's like, yeah, I sat through the whole video because this is exactly what I did in the operating room.
So funny story, Danny did that, but on a cadaver. So when he watched my video while practicing it, so they had it on a screen for him here and a screen over here he was working on, and he was watching back and forth. And that's the skill set Danny has.
Yeah.
Is like,
so I wanted to play with the screws because I'm doing arthroscopic lateral J's with the button. I'm like, let me check this screw game out. Ooh. So I set up a lab and I saw Shariff's video and I was like, hey, can I put this video up on the screen? And the deputy tech's like, yeah, why? I'm like, I'm going to race it. And they're like, what? I was like, yeah, just put it on. So then I was like, go. And we played. And I just kind of like did it. And I was looking at his video to make sure I did the steps. And then I finished it in like 45 minutes. And I took a picture.
Dude, that's like the Ridge Race. Remember like the Ridge Racer with like the shadow car?
Yeah. But the cadaver doesn't bleed, to be fair, right? It doesn't bleed. And, I wasn't really worried about nerve damage. So I'm just kind of going in there and doing it.
I think Will's jaw is about to drop to the ground here. Hearing all
no, I go like this, la, 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 la. I didn't hear anything.
I know, but you know what, though? This is the good part about what you guys do. You bring out, like, the real stuff. Because, like, this is all – anybody that tells you they just, like, know how to do it and they do it is bogus. And then on top of that, there is a certain skill set. I mean, Danny, your skill set is not common, right? Like, people always say, say to the Holiday Inn. It's like, no, I watched the YouTube video and I did it. Like, that's not – like, not everybody does that. So
yeah, that's true. But I think
awesome.
I do stay in my lane. I have a nice practice now. I get to do shoulder, elbow, a little bit of knee, but I'm not doing everything, right? Like I do cuffs, arthroplasty, and instability. Those are my top three, but I'm not, and fractures, but I'm not like a general ortho, right? So it's really tough for these general ortho guys, man, that are like doing a lot of different stuff, right? I mean, I think there's still a role for that, but like you're a sports guy, right? So you're doing a lot of sports shoulder. So you're kind of in your lane, so you can be really good.
Yeah, no, and that's the point. It's hard for people to understand because they see like some guys, like the guys that were talking about my videos, they're like, I saw your TTO, Macy, MPFL. It looked really cool. I'm like, dude, you shouldn't try that for your first one. Mm-hmm. I was like, they're like talking about meniscus transplants. I'm like, dude, it's not like a see one, do one, teach one type of thing. And but your point is well taken, right? Because it's hard for people to process that. Not everybody knows that. Even you see the word sports surgeon or you see the word shoulder surgeon, it's not always the same. Or the word surgeon, right? Orthopedic surgeon could mean many different things. So that's important indication as well for people that we're talking about. Like this is high level, like we say, but you don't want to see me do an ankle.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you're good, right?
I'm just not. I just feel like I'd rather do a meniscus transplant, to be honest with you. But yes, I like ankles.
You would do a meniscus transplant over an ankle fracture.
I love meniscus transplants.
So I agree with you.
I love them.
He's a knee guy.
I'm a glutton though for punishment. I love all the fun stuff. If I'm not sweating after a case, it's not. I'm a high octane. Probably like Danny. I'm like the Ridge Racer, with the ghost.
No, but I agree. I think, but that's what is going to make you. I mean, you're still young, but as you get older, you're going to realize how good you are at what you do because you've picked your poison and said, "This is where I'm going to be." I think there's a place for the general orthopod and they're needed without question. However, if you have a unique injury, I think it's important for that patient to really interview and get a second opinion, essentially talk to your doc. Now, they ask funny questions and say, how many have you done? And that's always interesting to me because the answer is more than one. However, I always ask them, what's the number you're looking for? Because I don't even think they know what they're asking. They just want to make sure it's not your first one. So I say, when they'll say, how many of these have you done? I'll be like, what's the winning answer?
Thousands, right?
Exactly.
I think that's the go-to. Thousands.
Or you could be like Danny and just tell your patient it's always his first one. Like you said.
No, I tell them real numbers. I'm pretty. It was nice that my old job I had like a database, so I actually knew my real numbers and my complication rate, which was awesome. And I wish some of my new hospitals had that. Like, I like to know what's my complication rate, revision rate, like how many did I do, just to be able to tell patients, right?
Yeah. No, I keep like a track of my surgery. So I'm able to know like rough numbers, but it's, at the same point, you're right. Like, what does it matter, right? I've seen doctors that I know that do like 200, and I'm like, there's no way you did the first 199, as proficiently. So it doesn't, the number doesn't always matter either. Like you said, like, what are you looking for?
Exactly. Because I think there's also the person that's done 1,000, but has done 1,000, maybe not the best way. So that's their way, and there's new techniques or whatever. And so I think that number is arbitrary. I think it's about being proficient and knowing the data. And I think personally, I keep all my own data. I still, publish, and we looked at the complications of the arthroscopic Latarjet to make sure that I was doing a service to the community and not a disservice. And we found that after 25 is your learning curve, and it matched the other articles that were already out. So I was like, cool, there's 5 other articles that all said 25, and that's where mine was. And we went from there. So I'm at 92 now, and I feel like as though I'm in a nice space to help the area people in the area. I had a guy, that was sent to me from Dallas to have it done all the way to Detroit. And I explained to him, I'm like, you flew over 4 dudes that could have done this for you arthroscopically, but somehow he got to me, but I was happy to help.
I haven't had that yet. I thought about that the other day. I had someone drive like a few hours, and I was like, oh shoot, that's cool, man. But like, I feel like if someone flew to see me, I might cry. I might like tear up a little, and then
would they get like a little gift basket or something like that? A little memorabilia?
Yeah, I'm gonna call my mom. I'm like, Mom, I made it.
What's cool about
it's different depending on market too.
Yeah.
Like I get a lot of people flying like from Alaska, Idaho, and like other places, but it's also different in like Seattle. It's different market than you guys. LA, where you're at is crazy, and in Detroit too. It's just different.
There's a lot of
type of docs
here, and I think the key is with those. I call them my mail orders, and so when the mail order comes in at my scheduler, they'll see me on a Monday. They'll have surgery on a Tuesday. Assume me post-op day 1, so they'll be in town for 2 nights, 3 days with me, and then they're off. And if they want to come back, happy to do it, or else I'll help them facilitate care wherever they're from. So I think what's cool about it is they feel that individualized, like concierge type medicine. I don't love it because I want my data. I want to know how they're doing. And if I feel like I can't get to them, I feel like I'm not where I want to be. But at the same time, if that's the only place where how we can do it, then you just do it.
Yeah.
I got a question regarding the show. I'm a pod star, not a doctor. Okay, so there's a segment on your show. There's lots of segments on your show, and it's called Keeping It Gangsta.
Keeping It Gangster.
Now, who came up with this idea? How did this idea come to fruition?
That was my idea. So, even in residency, like everyone I would be kind of up with the slang, and then I would just say words, and nobody knew what the vernacular was. And so it happens to me at meetings. I'll be at meetings, and I'll be like, "Oh yeah, low key," or I'll be like, "Yeah, bruh," or I'll say "Riz" or something. And then one of my friends, Melissa, was like, "I don't understand half of the shit that you're saying." So I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna have a segment to teach people how to speak slang, right?" So that's kind of how that came up.
Shariff, what was your thoughts when you were like, all right, we're going to roll with this? What were your initial thoughts on that?
I thought this was amazing just because it's like listening to my 16, my 13, and my 11-year-old speak. So I was like, this is perfect. Now I can have a conversation.
Yeah. We helped so many dads.
Now, do they think you're cool, or they're like, Dad, come on now, please, just don't say those words to me. Come on. No, what's the reaction you get?
So if you look at my Instagram, the first thing it says is #manchild. So they know I'm a kid. So to me, they were like, that's fine. We'll accept it.
All right. This question is for both of you. What's your favorite Keeping It Gangsta episode? Because obviously that's going to tie around a guess, maybe a reaction, maybe some of the words that you used. What's your favorite?
I would say it was our first episode, and It was with Kamran Hamid out of Chicago, who is also rapping. He'd be great for you guys.
Danny's cracking up already.
Yeah, he's
great.
Awesome. And we were showing, so I made up the words and I was showing them, and Danny and Kamran had to read them. And he wrote one back, but he put your instead of like you are. He wrote it YOUR apostrophe E.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, and he kind of put it up and he brought it down. I was like, no, pull that back up. Where did you put that apostrophe? So to me, I mean, we still laugh at that.
I don't know. I had fun with my friend Jessica Mina. She was giving us some new words we never heard about, like shooketh and stuff. It's just fun. It's just like I said, just trying to loosen people up and just kind of show like, look, we all have kids. We're around this stuff too. You're not the only one, and just kind of like making light of it and just like I said, just having fun. I think it loosens the guests up and it kind of catches them by surprise because they're like, wait, what?
Yeah, we have one coming out in, I think, like a couple weeks where Danny plays the game, What Am I Sitting On? We'll just leave it at that.
Well, that's a teaser right there.
Yeah, the audience is dying to see this now. This and the cuff cloud, everyone wants to know about it.
Dude, we're just having fun, man. I worked all day. Like tomorrow I got like 3 big cases, and so like it's fun to just come and like hang out with Shariff and whoever our guest is. Like we're talking to you guys, like we're just chilling. Like so, it's fun to decompress and just be silly. So I have a lot of fun. It's good.
It's great. I saw a couple of them and I forgot. I should have wrote it down. But you were speaking to someone and you had to keep in a gangster with golf terms.
Yeah.
And I was dying. I thought it was hysterical. Some of those I've never heard before. So that's a teaser for anyone that's listening. Please go check out I'm a Podstar, Not a Doctor. They have so many great shows and there's so many great segments. And one of my favorite is Keeping It Gangsta because most of the time Danny can't keep a straight face. He's just dying throughout the whole thing. And just like Shariff said, he's got the card, he's holding them up like the word, and then flips it around if you get it right or wrong. It's just whole great segment, and obviously it's well produced. So congratulations to the both of you for, one, having fun, right? Let's just start right there. Just the way you alluded to that this is kind of a break into your normal daily life. And now all of a sudden this has turned into something that people are resonating because they could tell you're having a good time. You're having fun with what you're doing and you're entertaining and you have incredible guests that are coming on. Just like you mentioned that, you have a golfer and you have someone from the Pistons and you have a doctor and it's great. It's really, really fun and I really enjoy it. So I just want to personally say congratulations on the podcast and I look forward to listening and watching it.
Well, the good news is you guys are going to be guests on our show soon. So that's going to be a lot of fun because I'm going to break Grant out of his Dr. Garcia. We're going to come up with something for
G Money.
Yeah.
Double G.
I'm ready for it. I'm gonna do some calisthenics beforehand. I'm ready.
Yeah, because we might, you don't know if you're keeping a gangster, it might be like a push-up contest with us. Who knows?
I saw that one. Danny, didn't you have an issue there? You got challenged to a push-up contest at a conference or something like that?
Yeah, like 2 in the morning. It was 2 in the morning, and we were coming back we were hanging out all night. And then like Paul's like push-up contest, like it's down. So then I was doing push-ups and I was like, watch me do these plyos. And I just kind of like missed and hit my face.
I saw that one. Shariff went at you pretty good with that one. I was like, oh man. So yeah. So push-up contest, that'll be a good one. So we got to find a great nickname for Dr. Garcia, Double G, something along.
Double G is G Money.
Yep.
I like that one too.
So we got a couple good ones. Listen, I know it's getting late. We really appreciate your time, especially being on the East Coast. And Shariff, real quick, I see Detroit Lions helmet in the back. We got some stuff going on. We got a big matchup. Matthew Stafford is coming. I don't know. I would say coming home to go against the Lions. So this, I find it extremely. There it goes. We're seeing an autographed helmet from Stafford, and. What are your thoughts? I mean, he's coming back. They made the trade. We thought it was kind of, maybe one-sided. Now both teams have really benefited from this trade, and now it comes down to this playoff game where whoever wins or loses, it's the conversation is going to be extremely interesting.
Yeah, I think Detroit's begging for this. I mean, it's been 30 years since we hosted a playoff game, which is insane. I mean, I remember back in the 90s when that happened, and where that was at the Pontiac Silverdome, which is now an Amazon fulfillment center. They knocked down that building and built that. So you can tell that it's been a while. Now, from the standpoint of these lines, I think, first of all, Decker reported. So we'll just leave that.
Okay.
And then I'll say that, so we should have won at Dallas. However, I think it was good that they lost because this Dan Campbell team is really interesting. I mean, when he came out originally and he showed up in Detroit and said, we're going to bite kneecaps and we're going to claw. And people are like,
the press conference.
Yeah. He's like, what the hell? But now you realize what he was talking about. It's like, we're going to be blue collar. We're going to just, we're going to work hard. And that's what they've done. So I think with Stafford coming back, who is great in this community, I got to know him when he was here. He did a lot of work with one of the rehab places here. And so he's just a good dude. His wife is great and just a great family. And he still comes through Detroit whenever he gets a chance. So the problem is he's the enemy this time. So it's going to be weird to see him like that. And they've actually banned people from wearing Detroit Lions Stafford jerseys for the game.
Wow.
Yeah, so you can't, if you're wearing it, they won't let you in, which is crazy. But I think it's going to be great. Win, lose, or draw, I think the Lions have turned the corner. They're going to be a presence in the NFL for a while, at least in the NFC North, and we'll see.
It's going to be a great game. It's one of those, if you're a Lions fan, I would think that you want to see Stafford play well because he meant so much, but still go home with an L. So that would be my thought on that one.
And so Danny and I got to figure out what our bet's going to be because he's in LA and I'm in Detroit, and here we go.
Danny, what's the bet here? Push-ups?
I don't know. I don't like betting money. I'm cheap. I would rather do push-ups.
Late night push-ups.
I got it. If I win, so if the Lions win, Danny has to eat red meat. And then if he wins, then I'll go vegan for a week.
What? No, I don't want to eat meat.
Danny sounds like a little kid. I don't want it. No.
I don't want that.
Dr. Garcia, any final words before we let this gentleman go?
Dude, thanks guys so much for being on here. This is awesome. Hopefully their listeners really enjoy this. Yeah. I'm looking forward to letting loose at the next one. It'll be good.
Yes. Grab your favorite drink, sit down, enjoy.
Awesome. Just to remind everyone, it's Dr. Danny Acevedo, a.k.a. Cuff Daddy, Dr. Shariff, Bishai, a.k.a. the American Gangster, and check him out. I'm a pod star, not a doctor. Please, everyone, check him out. Thank you for listening to the show.